Hi everyone, it's Margot. I hope you're doing well. This episode that you're listening right now is the long version, the full version of my interview with the director He ShuMing. This episode is a bit longer. We talked about mainly He ShuMing's career, his take on K-dramas, his future projects, and also the movie Ajoomma, of course. So if you are interested as well, I did another episode, a separate episode about our discussion about the movie Ajoomma, if you're interested in that. And yeah, this episode is a full version. I hope that you will like this interview. So I hope that you will enjoy this interview as much as I did. And yeah, as always, let us know if you like this interview, if you learn new things, or maybe if you have any question, maybe. Don't hesitate to leave a comment and let us know. And yeah, without further ado, let's get started with the interview. Okay, so maybe we can start the interview with some basic questions to get to know you more. Maybe first of all, can you tell us a bit more about you for the one who just discovered you?
So I'm a film school bred filmmaker. I did my undergrad here in Singapore. I did short films and then uh, did all sorts of corporate videos and all of that and documentaries. And then I moved to LA to do my master's in directing at the American Film Institute. It was around that time I started developing Ajoomma, and a part of that inspiration was also um, when I was moving away from Singapore, and then I would communicate with my family back in Singapore, and would talk to my mom, and that sort of led me to kind of develop this story, which we can talk about later. But while I was developing Ajuma, I was also doing commercials. I was um, trying to you know pay rent and make a living. The film has been traveling for almost a year and a half. It's still traveling here and there, and so that's been quite something.
Okay.
Yeah.
And maybe can you tell us why did you choose to become a director and why this fit in particular? It's a basic question, but sometimes it helps to get to know the person more.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been very interested in cinema. I think in high school, I would go to the cinema with friends after school. That's where we hang out. We watch movies, and along the way, the kind of films I find myself liking to watch has changed. And I've also been very much involved in junior college in drama and theater. So I always thought that would be something that I would go into. But I think for me, it's always been about telling stories. Then I decided I wanted to go to film school, which in Singapore culturally sometimes is a bit challenging to tell your parents that you want to pursue the arts. Um, Especially with Asian parents, it's always like, how are you going to make money? And
Mm-hmm.
um, so it was going to film school that sort of became this very um, permanent idea of pursuing something on a much higher level, and then directing became something I've always sort of set my mind on because I wanted to tell stories. I wanted to be able to share my perspective on the world, and but as it progressed, as this job or this career started to progress, and I learned more, I realized a lot of it is because it allows me to um, learn more about people and learn more about life and what interests me or what is of interest for me, but also because filmmaking is such a collaborative art form, it also makes me excited when I get to work with people, actors, cinematographers, editors, um, and people who are so in tune with their crafts. Um, so I think that has always been the motivation. And then the film came about, as I said, with Ajuma. It was really because I was observing my relationship with my mom, who was living in Singapore and I was in
Mm-hmm.
LA, and her aging and our relationship, and also her obsession with Korean drama. Um, that was a big impetus for me to develop the story and to make this film.
And I
Yeah.
just thought about something because I saw that you also worked on several short movies, and previously you talked
Mhm.
about work team, and I wanted to know if
Mhm.
between your short movie and your new feature film that is Ajoomma, do you have the same team, or are you trying to figure out
Mm.
your team for the time, like cinematographer and so on?
Mm. I think a lot of it has been, and I looked at the short films I've done. The theme of motherhood, the theme of, or rather, the characters I like to, or I tend to kind of explore, female characters and the theme of femininity that I like to look into. Um, a lot of it is also I've always enjoyed working with actresses. In some ways, I feel more comfortable with working with female actors, um, and there's so much more complexity I find, in the way a lot of at least the actors
Mm-hmm.
I've worked with, bring to the table. Um, it could be my upbringing also. I've grew up in a very female centric family, very matriarchal family where the women are in control. So maybe that made me, or makes me more in tune with creating uh, female characters in my
Okay.
movies. And the idea of mothers, I think, a theme of motherhood, I think for me is something I've always sort of explored, and I'm not really realizing it, until I kind of look back and see the works I've done, and go like, oh, this must be something. There must be something there. So when I started doing Ajuma, it became a very clear theme I wanted to continue to explore,
Mm.
and even the stories I've been developing after have have some similar veins. Yeah.
Okay. And since we are talking about that, maybe I can ask you now, do you have any movie that maybe had a huge impact in your life or in your career, or do you have any favorite movie or maybe director?
I love Pedro Almodovar. Um,
Okay.
I think, and he's someone I think who worked very well with melodrama, with female characters very well. So I think there are certain influences there. Um, Actually, the first film I remember watching when I was 15, and this is probably a little off of what I'm used to doing, or what I tend to explore now. But when I was 15, I watched, in the cinemas, Dancer in the Dark by Lars von Trier,
Okay.
only because I love Bjork, and I have no idea what the story was film was about. I read about it, and it completely devastated me at the end of the movie. At 15, I was kind of like, what is this? What is this film? Like, it's so. Um, I felt really heavy after, and I think when you're 15, you the kind of movies you sometimes tend to watch, when you get to watch, Hollywood movies, or Hong Kong movies, and nothing really hold you in depth, and with Dancer in the Dark, it was such a dark, deep movie about a woman trying to do everything she can for her child. So I think that changed the trajectory of how I saw films or filmmaking. Um, and with Pedro Almodovar, I think, All About My Mother is one of my absolute, favorite films of his. Voltaire as well, Penelope Cruz. Those are two films that I have rewatched several times, when I'm maybe stuck with writing. I would relook at it, and somehow find something different every time. So those are two I think
Okay.
I would say. Yeah.
And maybe this year or last year, do you have a movie maybe that you really liked?
Well, there's quite a lot of films I saw
Or
that
maybe
really
several. You can say
several.
several.
Yeah. Um, the last movie I just watched, which you might see it soon. Maybe it's very popular here in Southeast Asia. It's called How to Win $1 Million
Yeah,
Before
yeah,
Your
yeah.
Grandma
Yeah.
Dies. Um,
I'm waiting to watch
have
this
you?
now.
It's. I mean, I know it's melodramatic, and I know it's gonna be. You'll cry. It's very. It was. So it's kind of me and my friends. We were thinking, okay, let's challenge ourselves. Let's not cry. Let's not be taken away by that. But I thought it was really quite nicely done. Very, very moving. My friend who came with me was just sobbing throughout the second half of the film, and so um, that was the last film I watched recently that I kind of enjoyed. Um, I just saw also a completely opposite end of this is Evil Does Not Exist. Evil
Yeah.
Doesn't Exist. That's really devastatingly powerful. And I've really liked Drive My Car, but I thought this one was for a film to be made based on a musical score or music score. I thought it was something quite sublime about that.
Hmm.
Um, what else did I see recently that had a lasting? Um,
I know there is a movie that is popular that is Abang Adik.
Abang Adik, yes, I saw that last year at Udine. There's a really good performance from the actors. Abang Adik is also something that I very effective, I think, in the way it construct melodrama. But the actors are just so good. The actors were really amazing in the film. I saw that last year, and it did really well too in Southeast Asia.
Yeah, it's available on Netflix. I saw that in certain
I
countries.
know. Yeah, we need to get everyone. We need to get Ajoomma on.
I'm pretty sure that it will have great scores if it goes on Netflix. I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure of
I
that.
hope so too. Yeah.
Because Netflix invests a lot of money in K-dramas. So
Yeah.
it would be a great idea. I mean, it's in their project
Mhm.
these few years that will come. They're still investing more and more money in K-dramas and Korean culture. So it might be a
Mm.
great idea maybe to put it there. But I know it's not that
Yeah.
simple just to wish to put there. But
I think there can be if there are people really talking about it, I think there would be more attention on because I know the fans of Yojingu are very vocal, and I know they oftentimes and they're everywhere around the world. And sometimes they'll tag me like on social media posts, like where can we watch this? And there could be a Yojingu fan in Brazil that would be in my mind. I would be like, oh my god, his fans are really around the world,
yeah.
and so if their fans, if his fans in France are more vocal, it might show up.
And do you have maybe any hobbies in your spare time or maybe a skill that you would like to learn?
Lately, I've been trying to be healthy. That's not really a hobby, cycling and all that. But one of the hobbies I do kind of want to pick up, been something I've been wanting to do, is floral arrangement, like
Okay.
Gabbana. There's something I find very therapeutic about arranging flowers that is very meditative.
Hmm.
But I would like to do that in a more very theoretical, very studied way.
Hmm.
It is an art form.
Yeah.
So that I thought about that recently. I was like, I really want to do that. Yeah.
So the hobbies that you try to catch up on are more like separated maybe from your work? Do you try to separate maybe? Because I know that some artists like to have
Mm,
hobbies only related to their work, and some of them try
yeah.
to separate it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me, a lot of what my work require is to be in touch with um, human emotions and studying people. I mean, I as much as I can, besides movies or going to cinemas, I like going to plays. I like to understand the expression of human expression in various mediums and forms, not just in film. So I think that sometimes flow into the things I like to do in my spare time. Travel is also one thing. I think the film also allowed me to be able to go to places I've never been, and I think in that way that opens me up to inspiration as well. Um, I think in some ways it seeps into the work we do. Like sometimes there are certain things that are completely opposite from my work,
Mm-hmm.
um, or the things I watch sometimes are completely opposite from what I uh, would want to do, because I think sometimes I like to think of I like to switch off my brain sometimes, but it's dangerous because you can kind of get comfortable, and social media is very dangerous sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I like to be more aware, and been trying to practice meditation a bit more. It's not just because of my work. I think it's just because of living in general.
Yeah.
Just keeping myself centered. And I think uh, the film becomes part of, or my job becomes really part of my life. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't really think sometimes there's really any separation at all. Yeah.
And about your inspiration, since we talk about that, we talk about that. Is it how do you work? Like, how does it work for you? Your inspiration, is it something that comes easily, or is it more hard to come with inspiration? Do you have maybe a notepad that you bring with you
Mm.
every time you go outside? I don't know.
I tend to, if I have to write, I someone who needs to have a sort of schedule where
Okay.
everything needs to be. I need to set aside time, um, and in order for me to make sure that I get myself that space to be inspired, I also like to do what I call emotional preparation. So it's if I know today I have to write, and I've set aside certain time to do certain things,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I might listen to music. I might read something. I might go for a long walk. Especially going for long walks help a lot. Um, but sometimes the inspiration come in watching films, reading books, uh, and I have to also set myself time for that, where I have to go like, okay, today do what you need to do. Go watch a film, and have a day to yourself where you're not trying to force it out. And then sometimes that doesn't really work. And then sometimes inspiration can come from um, when you don't expect it. Like
Mm-hmm.
a conversation with someone could spark something. Early on, I used to have a notepad, but now I just type it on my note app.
Yeah.
Just remember to this happened, and then just remember to go back to it. Um, but in but sometimes I think inspiration require a bit of preparation also. At
Mm.
least for me, it works sometimes where I find myself having inspiration because I have centered myself emotionally into something. Um, and or reading, especially when I read, I tend to kind of like highlight things that gave me an idea, or give me or make me think a lot.
Mm.
Maybe there's more to the sentence. So I try to be open to inspiration around me.
Yeah, recently I had a conversation with a friend of mine and we talked about overstimulation.
Hmm.
It can be a great thing, but at the same time, it can be too much. And on
Yeah,
the one hand, you can find inspiration thanks to that because you can find any information in 1 second. Everything is so fast these days, but at the same time, you
yeah,
can feel overwhelmed. It's too much with social media and everything.
yeah. It is, and I think with social media it's so dangerous sometimes because um, it's what they call doom scrolling, right?
Yeah.
And it becomes so numb. You can become so numb to it.
Mm-hmm.
The overstimulation is completely right, because sometimes I feel like I have just way too many things, or way too many gadgets, or way too many uh, distractions, that I find myself feeling sometimes even down, and I don't know why. Then I realize it's just because you've been staring at something for so long, and so it is really trying to be more mindful of these actions. And one of the things I started doing, again, I tend to, I tried doing it at some point because I realized I was so dependent on my phone. Um, so I started doing this when I wake up, instead of I don't charge my phone next to me. I always have it quite far away, like at my desk or something. But I have to kind of remind myself that before you even touch your phone, make your bed, meditate, stretch, get a
Yeah, I
glass of
know.
water, and not let that be the first thing that you do is check your phone. And I find that to be, yeah, we sometimes are not aware of that, how attached we are, and getting, and then you get tired and you don't know why. It's because you've just been on your phone the whole time.
Mm.
And yeah,
I
it's
heard this
scary.
advice. I heard this advice like quite a lot, but I kind of I find it hard to do it actually, because I charge my phone next to me. So the first thing I do is that I try to not do it, but it's kind of difficult. But I have
Yeah,
to
it's
work on
tough.
that. Yeah, because it's kind
Yeah,
of you're dependent, kind of.
it's an addiction,
Yeah.
and we don't talk about it enough, that, or we're like, no, we're not addicted. You are, we are addicted to it, because it is, I think a lot of it, and I do think sometimes the pandemic has aggravated it a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we as human beings, we crave for connection, and that connection sometimes help it, releasing dopamine, and it makes us feel good. So the phone sometimes is our connection to, um, the world, or
Mm-hmm.
to something, or to work emails, or to
Yeah.
social media. But and then we get sad because then suddenly we feel like we're alone, because then you don't have that connection. And maybe we all need to learn to be, that it's okay to be alone, like
Mm-hmm.
it's okay to be alone with your thoughts sometimes. So it's but at the same time, I'm not hard on myself, where I'm like, oh, I failed today, I looked at my phone again when I woke up. So it's something I try to, uh trick myself, and and train myself to do that more, practice that more. Where, okay, tomorrow I'll try again. I'll maybe do 10 push-ups before I look at my phone, and then the next day I'll do 20 push-ups before I look at my phone.
Mm.
So it's just training our mind to not feel like, we rely on it so much.
And is it something that you fear might have an incident maybe on your inspiration at work?
Of distraction, or
Yeah.
with the phone?
Yeah, the
Mm,
phone and distraction.
yeah. The phone is something that has to be, I realize, I was just thinking about it the other day when I was trying to write, that phone is in every. Can you write a film? Can you make a film that doesn't show the phone at all? Because it's such a way of connection, and then, looking at text, or getting a call, or like you have to depend on the phone for several things.
Historical
Um,
film, maybe.
you can, but you can't, like, I feel like, unless you're doing a
Yeah,
period film,
yeah, yeah. Historic
maybe.
period, yeah.
Yeah, a historic period film, but contemporary modern films, can you truly make a film where no one has a phone, or like no
Yeah.
one is using it? That would be a challenge, I think. But yeah, so it's really tough. It's just become so ingrained in our life
Mm-hmm.
today, but it is a distraction. I try to. I don't know, not about incorporating it, but realizing that, um, it's just part of everyone's lives now. That it's also in the characters' lives, just because it's how it is. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And if we go back to your previous work, I would like to
Mm.
ask you, for the one we just discovered you, how would you describe or define maybe your work?
I think my work attempts to understand our humanity, our shared humanity, um, and I like to explore specificity um, in these sort of shared human experience. I made films that are set in places where I'm not from, and for me, it's important to create these characters that are rooted in that specificity, because I think when you do your homework and you have all these sort of specific things that the characters need to do to drive the story, the audience would then relate to it a lot more, regardless of where they're from, because it's I think we have so much shared experiences, regardless of where you're from or who you are, or your background, and at least that's what I try to do with my shorts and my other films as well.
Okay, so I think that's pretty much it for the introduction part. Maybe we can go to Ajoomma. We can talk
Mhm.
about your first feature film. Maybe can you tell us a bit more about this movie for the one who haven't watched it yet?
So Ajoomma is about a Singaporean middle-aged woman who is obsessed with Korean drama, and she decides to travel to Korea, um, and supposedly with her son, and then her son couldn't make it, so then she decides to continue to go on her own, but she gets left behind, and in sort of trying to find her way back to rejoin this group tour that she has joined. Um, Initially, she goes on this unexpected journey of self-discovery, and it's a film very much inspired by my mom's real obsession with Korean drama, which I think a lot of people have, um,
Yeah.
and that escape, that Korean drama offers sometimes, and how it mirrors and parallels your own lives. That was what interests me in making this film.
Okay. So for the inspiration, it's mainly your mother.
It started
And
from there, yeah.
yeah. And how
Um,
much time did it take to bring this movie to life?
in total, about 7 years.
Okay.
In between when I was started to develop it when I was in school, and then started writing it, and we developed it in film labs, and financing it was also challenging because it was my first film. I worked with my producer Anthony Chen, who has made a few very successful
Yeah.
independent Singapore films, Ilo Ilo, Wet Season,
The Breaking
and
Eyes.
he Breaking Eyes, and so working with him and I've known him since we were in our 20s, for many years. So he came on board in the beginning, and we developed it together and financed it, and he helped to get financing for it, um, and then shot it. Yeah, so it took about 7 years in total.
Yeah, during my interview with Anthony Chen, he told me about Ajoomma and he said that I
Mm.
might like it. So that's why, because when it was announced at the Busan Film Festival, like each year, I like to watch like the lineup of each festival to get in touch with it.
Mhm.
And I saw at first like the lineup at the BIF, and I saw your movie at first. But then when I
Yeah,
did the interview with Anthony Chen, like, it was maybe a year later, maybe. He
yeah,
told me about that, and I was like, oh, okay, I have to note it down, and maybe when I have the opportunity to watch it, maybe I will do an interview,
yeah,
maybe. So,
yeah,
yeah. And I know that
yeah.
it's very important for a filmmaker, like, to go between the short movie form and the feature film. It's quite a huge time, a huge moment for a filmmaker. Did you face any challenges? Or was it hard to do this
Mm.
big move?
I think I've sort of a lot of it seems theoretical. A lot of it is, because the feature film is a completely different
Yeah,
monster than a short film. The commitment to it, and the time and the money that you put into it, and the audience
yeah.
you want to have is very different from
Short
a
movies.
feature film,
Yeah.
short movies, and so for me it was. really making sure that uh, we've done the preparation, we've done, and really making sure that the script was solid. So I
Yeah.
think working with Anthony, he was very strict about that. Um, I think it was helpful because the labs that we attended, and the numerous meetings that we had to talk about the characters and stories, was to make sure that we got the script tight, um, and that we have this amount of budget that we have to work with, um, and also the idea of, I chose to, when my first feature film had to be shot in a country this that in a language I don't speak, um and in winter, where Singapore, we don't have winter, so
Yeah.
it was putting myself in all these obstacles that are difficult, so, but I kind of, because that's what the story required, so you go along with it, and you make sure that it works out. So more than anything, the preparation is the same. But I think the difference between short film and feature is that feature is really just a marathon. You just have to ensure that you have. Sometimes you just have to slow down a little bit so that you can continue, because it's such a long
Process.
journey to, yeah.
And you talk about working in South Korea, so it is your first time in working with South Korean production, not production, but
Mm-hmm.
team, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
So, did you face any challenges since it's not your mother tongue Korean? Did you learn maybe a bit
Yeah.
of Korean, or did you speak English on the set?
I tried learning Korean, but it's just, it's difficult to be on a level that requires you to be really proficient and run a set. We work with a very uh, good translator. So
Okay.
she is a Singaporean actress based in Korea, and she's very fluent in Korean, English, Singlish, Mandarin. Um, so she became someone that was always by my side.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Working with Koreans was initially tough, because not especially trying to find the right people who can also be effectively bilingual is quite challenging. Um, so we in our team, there are some of them, like the core team would be bilingual, but then there are a lot of others that, and also the actors don't necessarily speak English, and it's, so we know that communication is going to be difficult. So my translator became someone who was our constant, sort of, she's always there, because then
Yeah.
she ensures that nothing gets lost, and even
Yeah.
if things gets lost, we know how to sort of fix it. It has happened. I mean, there's been some miscommunication, but it's bound to happen when you don't speak the same language. Um, but we understand how to sort of rectify that, and so that was maybe the biggest, I think, um, challenge that can creep up once in a while. Um, Other challenges would be, for me, it was shooting in winter.
Yeah, especially in
There's,
Korea.
especially in Korea. Korea winter is so harsh,
Yeah.
and I've never experienced shooting a film outdoors in that kind of cold before. So it's just to manage my expectation and to make sure um, I'm able to do my job well, from the cold. So the crew and the team were very helpful in making sure that we are prepared for that. Um, um, I guess also it was towards the end of COVID, so there was a lot of protocols. I remember,
Yeah.
with surrounding COVID. And Korea is, like Singapore, it's very strict. There's a lot of restrictions in place. So I remember I was almost quarantined because I had a COVID infection before I flew. So back then they didn't know there wasn't really a lot of protocols that we have today. So it was like, oh, you have to be quarantined, but that means that eats into my pre-production time, and it's
Yeah.
how do we get out of that? It was a lot of looking back. It was just a lot of little minor things, but at the end of the day, it was such a fun 3-4 months that we were there, trying to make this film, meeting the actors and working with them. It wasn't anything that was so difficult, because it was difficult, but we also went through it,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So for the winter part, since you said that you filmed when was COVID, did you decide at first, like at the beginning, that you wanted to film in winter, or is it something that came upon you and you didn't have any solution because it was you film now or never?
I think it was very early on. I wanted it to be in winter because I
Okay.
wanted the snow, and I wanted this character, this Ajoomma, who come from Singapore, and she has never seen falling snow before.
Okay.
Um, I think that idea of a middle-aged woman seeing snow for the first time and becoming a child again, that image to me, and you see in the film, she sees it, and then she is mesmerized by it.
Yeah.
So that has always been from the very beginning in the first draft, in the so many drafts I've written in 7 years, but that has always sticked. And it's probably one of the first scene I imagined was this woman dancing in the snow. So then I knew it has to be in winter. But that also means that's why it also took so long, because we had just this window of time to shoot the film.
Yeah.
So over time, I remember over the 7 years, there were times when we're like, okay, I think we're ready to shoot this year. But then we haven't found financing, or the script wasn't right. So then we have to wait another year because we missed it. So that gives us a bit of like timeline, I guess. So I've never really thought of changing it to like, oh, let's do it in the fall, let's do it in the summer, because then it won't be the same, the impact wouldn't be the same as this winter and summer in Singapore.
Yeah. I see. And maybe for the casting choice, since you talk about Yoo Jin-gu and other actors that are very famous, not only Yoo Jin-gu, but if people who are listening to us right now, if they are like watching K-dramas for some time, they will recognize a lot of people. How did it work for you for the casting? Did you have like any actor in particular in mind, or did you like come up with the flow and?
Maybe let's start with the first actress, the main actress. So
Yeah.
Hong Hui Fang, who plays the Ajoomma.
Yeah.
So she's an actress. She's a very veteran television actress in Singapore.
Yeah.
And I grew up watching her, and she was someone that I cast first.
Okay.
And we workshop together, and we spent a lot of time together to get the character right. And then in Korea, there were actors. The way I sort of work, or at least when working with the casting director, was that I look at actors I like, that I've seen, and I give them, I kind of like this actor. Do you think we can get them? So the first one that we cast was Jong Dong-wan, who plays the older man in the film. So he is someone, he's such a veteran. I remember he was my first choice. The first that sort of came to mind, just because I've seen him in dramas and in some films.
Yeah, he's a veteran.
Yeah, and also a lot of it is my mom's approval of like, yeah, he's good, So she has to say in it, or rather, she has opinions in it. So he was the first that we managed to cast, and with Yoo Jin-gu, I think we had a whole list of actors that we wanted to play the cameo, because he's playing himself, and obviously, there were actors who turned it down because it's a first indie film, the budget's not very high, and how do we make this an incentive for this actor to say yes? And Yoo Jin-gu was very generous, in the sense that I think he worked at Jong Dong-wan in Hotel de Luna, which is this Korean drama,
Yeah.
quite very popular Korean drama with IU, and I think he was like, oh, if Mr. Jong is on it, I'll say yes. So then we managed to cast him. The tour guide was the hardest to cast because I needed a Korean actor who could speak both Korean and Mandarin.
Yeah.
And I think Kang Hyung Suk, who really just came around because someone suggested his name because he spent a few years in China in high school. And so they was like, oh great, let's see if you can speak a little bit of Mandarin or can speak Mandarin. And he did a tape, and then I was like, and decided to bring him in for a reading, and talk to him. And then, but in my mind, I was like, this guy is way too good looking to be this character. He's just so beautiful, his face, but he had such a good energy about him. But also, he is a really good actor, very committed. So it was working with him to craft his sort of part of his personality into the character a little bit. And so it all, it kind of came together. I thought we had a perfect cast, and the other actors in the film also were really well. I thought we had some really real good talents in there.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I was surprised because at first in the trailer, I think I only saw Hong Huifeng and Yo Jinggu, if I remember correctly. So I was surprised to see Chong Dong-hwan. Is it his name? I don't want to.
Yeah.
I was surprised to see him because I like him, and he's like in a lot of K-dramas. And
yeah, he is such a good actor. And I remember when we first met, and we were just getting to know each other, and I said, I saw this Korean production of Lady Macbeth in Singapore when I was maybe 21 and I was in college, and I said it was such a good production because he works on stage as well. And then he said, oh, I was in that production. And then it became so weird because then I realized that I've seen you in person a long time ago, but we didn't realize that we met, or rather, that he was there, because I don't remember he was like, because it was so long ago, and then I probably don't know who he was then. So since then, every time when I go back to Korea, and he's always in a stage production, he would send me invitation to go watch him on stage. But the thing about these plays is that there are no subtitles. So I'm using like for 2 hours of a Korean play with no subtitles. But he's such a lovely man, and his face just says so much and tells so much story. Yeah.
You will end up learning Korean.
I hope so.
With time.
Yeah.
And maybe do you have anything that you like to say for the one who haven't watched the movie yet? Anything about the movie?
I think if you a lover of Korean drama, you would enjoy this film.
Yeah.
But also, even if you're not, I think it is regardless. I think it's a film that I hope will make you think about the dreams that you have, and you want to pursue them. But also think about your relationship with your family, with the people around you. Hopefully that makes you feel a little warm inside. It's a for me it is a heartwarming film.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make a film that hopefully make the audience feel good, and because we went in with the intention of making it that way, and hopefully you'll feel the same thing.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that for the one who are listening to us right now, your movie will be like greatly loved. Like it's just a shame, like as we said previously, that French people cannot watch it yet, because when I saw the female lead like character, I was like, this is me maybe in a few decades. And a lot of Korean drama lovers, like it's us in a few
Yeah.
decades. I mean, for a lot of us is that. So I kind of identify to her in certain ways. Like, yeah, that's what I like about the movie. That's why I wanted to watch it.
Yeah, we'll send you a link after.
And yeah, so that's pretty much it for Ajoomma. Maybe I wanted to talk a bit more about your previous like project and stuff like that. I wanted to know a bit more because I like to talk with film director, and I wanted to ask you maybe some general question. And one of them was, what do you like the most with your work now that you have done like quite several short movies and your first feature film?
I like that the films that I've made over the years are a reflection of my perspective and my taste and my voice
Mm-hmm.
of that time. Sometimes I look at my early short films from like when I was in film school, and there was a period of time I'd be like, oh my god, it's so cringy. Like, why did I think that? But then I've come to accept it because I can't deny who I was before, and that was what I.
It's part of the process, kind of.
Yeah. So I think it's a documentation of the filmmaker and the person that I was then, and I has I'm constantly evolving, and um, so that for me is a way to accept um, the films I've worked on, and the stories I want to tell. Then, you know, how has it evolved into the stories I want to tell now? I think that's really is my approach with my body of work.
Mm. And among the project that you worked on, either like one especially that you prefer?
No, I think they're all equally the same to me. So maybe some that I might be a bit like, oh, okay, it's still a work in progress for sure. A lot of them are work in progress. I made a short film uh, at AFI, which was about a Vietnamese manicurist who uh, she is obsessed with American soap operas,
Mm-hmm.
and she want to change her accent. She want to be more Americanized, and she's a new immigrant with a heavy Vietnamese accent. But I think it's a fun film because the kitschiness of American soap opera, and that's sort of like very over the top. There's something about soap opera and Korean drama or TV drama that I think I uh, cons- it's gonna be part of my body of work in the future. I think like
Okay.
sometimes lately, reality television to me is this a soap opera, a kind of soap opera.
Oh,
Very guilty,
you
guilty
watch like
pleasure.
variety shows, Korean variety shows?
I do
Or
watch Korean variety shows. Some of it. The reality show sometimes I like your. It's all really people are like saying it's so trashy, like Real Housewives or uh, all these dating shows. But I think underneath or the making of these drama, there is something very human and melodramatic about. And I'm also curious about people um, who become obsessed with it. Like they find parallels to their lives in something that is an escape. Yeah.
and maybe I haven't asked you, but do you watch these days Korean dramas? Is it something that you
Uh,
like to watch? Can you find time to watch
I
it?
do. I haven't found time to watch it because Korean drama requires so much commitment.
Yeah.
Um, and I have a backlog of Korean dramas I have to like keep up with. But sometimes I will see my mom watching it if I'm at and I'm like, okay, she's keeping up on that, and she will update me on what's if I see her, she will update me on like what is
Popular.
currently happening. Yeah. and so, but there's so many, and it's just I haven't had a chance to keep up,
Yeah.
but I should.
Each month, like maybe 4 or 5 new K dramas are released each month.
Yeah.
So it's a lot to catch up. So that's why I try to like prioritize stuff that looks a bit better than others because, of course, like with 5 or 6 K-dramas each month, some will be great, some will be not that great. So it's difficult when you
Mm-hmm.
start to like pick up which one is worth your time, kind of.
Yeah. Usually by the third or fourth episode, I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I gotta stop. Like you haven't won me over. I
You
gotta move
can
on to
guess
something
if
else.
it will be great or
And it's also not just Korean drama. There's so many television. There's so many options.
yeah.
The paradox of choice is just, sometimes I'm like, I don't want to watch anything. I just want to go out, live a little, but I'm quite happy just watching my shows.
Yeah, because K-dramas are
This is an escape.
popular, but these days there are also Japanese dramas and Chinese dramas and
Are coming back.
Thai dramas. Chinese dramas are, I think, better these days than Korean
Yeah.
one. I think like the last 2 years was quite bad years for Korean dramas. I feel that it's always the same for Korea. Whereas in China, I feel that they try to do new stuff. Of course, we also have like the overbearing CEO tropes and stuff like that, of course. But you can find in China some hidden gem, different stuff that you won't be able to find in Korea.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot. My hairdresser, she stopped. She said she hasn't really been watching Korean drama. So every time I go to her, she's like, "You gotta watch this Chinese drama," and so I noticed that trend, and also Japanese drama is starting to come back. Because I remember when I was in high school, Japanese drama was all the rage.
Yeah.
And then it kind of just fizzled a little bit. Korean drama became
The thing.
the thing to watch, and
Yeah.
then now Japanese drama is coming back in some ways, and
Thai
and
dramas.
Thai drama too.
Yeah.
My grandmother loved Thai drama. She because they're starting to become very popular.
Yeah, with BLs especially.
BL drama, especially the stars are huge.
Yeah.
The BL dramas, and so there is. I've been asked like, oh, have you thought of doing a BL drama? And I'm like, I would, but I don't know how. I've never seen a BL. I've seen clips of BL dramas, but I need to get into that because that's a completely different genre that is so fascinating.
BLs are not only in Thailand. Like Korea is getting more and more like good ones. A recent popular one was Semantic Error.
Yeah.
So this one is very popular. And Japan as well is a bit famous for BLs.
Yeah.
Taiwan used to, but not anymore.
I think Taiwanese drama has always been sort of like on and off. Like something come back, but it's I don't know. It's a bit. They haven't really had
a good one, a huge one.
They don't have a breakthrough hit yet, So
the last one was Shangjian Someday One Day. This one was a huge one.
Okay,
but it's not a BL.
That was like a romantic.
Yeah, with like time loop and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, okay.
With Greg Sue. I don't know if you.
Greg Sue is very popular.
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw it, but he will be playing in the Korean drama in August.
Because he's huge in Korea, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's popular.
I saw him in person in Taiwan for the Golden Horse, and I remember I was like, wow, this guy is he has that look, that idol look, and I had no idea who he was then, and people were like, you have to. And then there was the year when he was also in Marry My Dead Body.
Yes. Yes.
And I think that just blew up because he's just very charming and boyish, and but yeah, it's there's so many options, so many things to watch. It's hard to keep up.
Thanks to internet, kind of, we have more and more. Like now, you can, if you speak English, you can read English. You can like watch pretty much anything. Anything. So it's even harder than a few years ago. Only K-dramas were popular, or Japanese dramas. Now it's even more countries, and maybe in the future we will have like more Vietnamese dramas, Cambodian dramas. I don't know.
I think Vietnam drama is going to be the next thing. The way Vietnamese television, Vietnamese films is so fast. The way I think right now Vietnamese cinema is known for more art house Vietnamese films, but it's becoming, I think, the next big thing.
And Philippine as well, I think maybe.
Yeah, Philippines has always been, but I think they never really had. They've always been
A breakthrough.
they've always just been like popular just amongst Filipinos, but I don't think they have anything that's very international yet. So yeah.
Yeah, they had Gaya sa Pelikula. That was a BL.
Mm-hmm.
That is a BL. It was a bit popular, but it's true that it hasn't got like any breakthrough if you compare to Thailand. But Thailand, that's smart because they decided to put like all their money into BLs.
It's exciting times for dramas in Asia.
Yeah, definitely. I don't watch any like Western series actually. Only movies, even movies. Like I have so many things to watch in the East, so I don't have time for the West. I'm sorry. I have to prioritize. I have to choose. So I prefer to go on like movies, and each year, like if you watch like every festival, like Cannes Festival and so on, the BIFF and other festivals.
Have you been to BIFF?
Not yet. I've been to Korea, but I would love to go there.
Yeah, you have to go to Busan. It's really one of the most amazing film festival experience.
I know.
Where the energy and the whole of Asia is there, and people in the West are trying to get into their influence because they recognize it. But it's I think you would have so much fun in Busan.
Yeah, I would love to go there, but it's not easy to like go there. Like I know that even Korean people are fighting for the ticket, so I know. So it's kind of difficult.
You need to get validated. Yeah, you need to get press validation.
Yeah, accreditation. Yeah, it's hard. It's good. It's difficult. But I try to like from afar watch every like festival, the Golden Horse, the one in Shanghai as well. And I try to see like what's happening, which movie is getting popular and so on. I try to catch up. But in France, we are always late kind of for movies. We're not the last one, but almost the last one. Like the first one are Singapore, Korea to get the new movies. Like the one How to Get $1 Million Before Grandma Dies.
It should be coming out, right?
I don't know.
No, I read it's going to be in Europe because it's just so wildly popular here.
I would love to.
They're smart. If they're smart, they will put it in France and in other parts of Europe pretty soon. I'm sure.
Because most of the time when we have like shortly after a festival the movie, it's like huge movies like a Monster from Korea that I saw in avant-premiere in Switzerland, or maybe Decision to Live from Park Chan-wook. The big, huge movies get released very soon, but the other ones, it's always like a few years later, or even sometimes never. And you have to live in Paris. If you don't live in Paris, like there is no chance almost that you will be able to see the movie.
Yeah, because when I was in Udine, it's very. I thought they bring in really the best of Asian cinema of the year. But not the super festival art house type, but really the more accessible ones. And I think they do it really well. And very passionate team behind it. I remember, my experience there was just undescribable. It was a perfect European premiere for our film. But I had wished that after that we had more exposure in Europe because the film, I wish we had more people watching there. It will. I will have to chase our sales agent to make that happen. Yeah,
and sometimes also like being on TikTok and stuff like that can help sometimes for the exposure. So I think the future will be bright for Eastern cinema, I guess.
Yes.
I hope so, at least.
I hope so too.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the retrospective part. Do you have anything that you want to add?
I just finished a short film. It's a commissioned short film, or commissioned by Cartier.
Okay.
So they approached me last year to make a short based on Trinity, which is the centennial celebration of this ring called the Trinity ring.
Yeah.
The Trinity collection. So they gave me a theme of like make a film about Trinity, or this theme of Trinity, and so I made this very short film about over 3 minutes, but it was really my sort of response to the cinematic space or the cinema, I remember when I had the idea, they announced in Singapore like this cinema called the Cathay was closing down. And I remember feeling really, really sad about it because it was the first cinema I've ever been to when I was a child. But it was also the cinema I go a lot as a teenager and when I was in film school and when my film premiered, I did a screening there, so it had a lot of memories for me. So the film born out of that was also a homage to a film by Chai Ming Liang called Goodbye Dragon Inn, so
Okay.
which has a similar story of plot of cinema in its last day, and this actor came to watch a wuxia film that's playing at the cinema. So it's about these people watching a film in the cinema and their reaction to this movie that's playing. And the movie I picked in my film is a very old film from the 60s, late 50s, 60s in Singapore called Lion City. And so um, I wanted to show that connection of how we watch films and the emotional response we have to a film, and how universal that reaction is.
Hmm.
The kind of connection we have as people in the sacred space of the cinema. So it's part of it's traveling as part of an exhibition that Cartier has. It launched in Shanghai, and then it'll be in Singapore this month, and then I know it's going to travel around the world, and I'm sure eventually it's going to be in Paris.
And since you are talking about this project, we can go to the future project part. Apart from this one, do you have any project that you're working on?
Hmm. Developing a few projects. Nothing I can really talk about at the moment, but um, some that are similar in theme. I'm doing a road movie, writing a road movie. Um, I was doing an adaptation of a novel. So hopefully that these, scripts or the stories will become in fruition and we'll get to make them. But yeah, I think I also hope to go back to Korea. I really enjoyed my time working there,
Okay.
and I hope there'll be an opportunity to make another film in Korea. So we'll see if there's anything that
That
works.
would be great. Or maybe, are you interested maybe in working on a K drama or a series? Is it something that would interest you?
K drama would be. I don't know if they will accept me. Okay. I mean, for the film, I shot a K drama, and we shot it like a K drama. And it's K drama is it's a very different monster to tackle. Um, Hopefully, I mean, I think it's a completely different way of working. But yeah, who knows? You never know. We'll see.
Yeah, because it can be with the Korean like for a channel like GTBC TVN, or it can be for Netflix as well, or Disney.
Yeah, yeah,
Disney.
yeah,
They also make K dramas
yeah.
as well. So you're open to work in South Korea again? Okay,
I hope so. Yeah.
that would be great. And you already talked a bit about that, like previously, but do you have any genre that you're drawn to, maybe for your future movie? Let's say.
Hmm. Um, I do want to do horror at some point.
Okay.
I remember studying because growing up, I love horror films,
Okay.
but the kind of horror films I like are not essentially the scary ones, like the jump scares or all of that. I like emotional um, horror films that are they're scary because they feel real emotionally,
Okay.
or you know. I remember there's a Japanese film called Dark Waters from the 90s, I think, and they remade it in the US. Um, and I remember it was it's such an eerie film, but also really moving, um, because it was essentially about a mother's grief for her child. Um, so I do would like to explore horror. I've never really had a chance to do that, and I would like to try. And lately, I've been kind of inspired by the idea of a Western, but it's just kind of, I never thought I would go into watching or liking Westerns, but so it's just been a thought, and who knows, it could be something interesting there. Yeah.
Like all the ones, because I know that these days, this recent years, like new ones were made. Are you talking like the
Hmm.
original ones or?
I think old, new, contemporary ones. I
Okay.
think the landscape of the West, or there's something so isolated in the idea of what a Western is. I think that is what interests me. Um, I rewatched Paris, Texas recently, um, and I've seen it a few times when I was a film student, and I rewatched it again, and it is, and it, I remember you wouldn't think, I didn't think it was a Western, and I was reading about it. It's like, oh, they refer to it as a Western. So it's just rethinking what the idea of this genre is. And actually, Western's pretty melodramatic. It's
Mm-hmm.
like the masculine version of like a soap opera, I think. And because I've always felt like I'm in touch with the feminine side
Yeah.
of my kind of filmmaking. Uh, Trying to understand masculinity for me would be maybe one thing at some point I would like to continue. I would like to explore. Maybe I've always been a little hesitant to explore masculinity, but um, maybe at some point I will. Yeah.
Okay. And for a Western, like, where would you like to shoot it if you could shoot it?
I've always associated the U.S. as
Yeah.
the big, West, the Southwest. I've always been, maybe growing up in Singapore, where it's urban jungles and very tropical. Um, when I moved to LA, and I managed to kind of travel around a little bit, um, in the Southwest or in Arizona, or places where it's just wide open spaces and wide big blue skies. To me, there's something quite romantic about that. For at that point, you because it's so new, and so this the possibilities are endless. Um, so at this point, I sometimes feel like, because I'm also working in the US, between the US and Singapore, it feels like I've always wanted to kind of do something about that landscape, or film a story set in that landscape. Um, so yeah, I think it would be something I would look at in the future. Yeah.
Okay. Because when you talked about like isolated side of things, it's not like related at all, but I thought about a series that I had a few
Mhm.
months ago that is To the Wonder. It's a
Yeah,
Chinese one, and I immediately thought about. I don't know if you watched this
yeah,
series.
yeah. I've not seen the series, but I've heard about it. Where was it set? Like,
I was in near to the Gobi Desert,
hmm.
near
Right.
Mongolia, so
Yeah,
west side of China,
yeah. Also the
northwest.
West Side.
Yeah,
I think a Chinese Western would be interesting
that's what I thought about that.
to
But
see. Yeah,
I want. That's why I asked you if you wanted to do it in the
yeah.
U.S. or.
I think in China, like, I don't know. I haven't really thought about like how. I mean, if an opportunity comes with China, um, or even just traveling there, because my dad's from the south of China, which is
Okay.
Hainan, which is like it's like a little island on the south of China.
Hainan. Okay.
So we go Hainan, yeah, we go there quite, maybe. He goes back every year, and it's also, Hainan is like when a lot of um, the Chinese diaspora, when they moved to Singapore, Hainan was maybe the last um, group of Chinese diaspora that settled in Singapore.
Okay.
Um, so the idea of immigration, the idea of migration, rather, um, is always something I'm curious about. It's something that never ends. It's people move. That's what happens because they want a better life. Um, but when you go back to to your so-called roots, how would that worked out? I think sometimes I tried exploring that in a documentary a few years ago with my dad. It was a short documentary, more travelogue kind of documentary where
Mm-hmm.
he goes back home to his hometown, and I followed and just kind of observe him in that space. Um, and I mean, I kind of shelved it after I was done, but I thought at some point I might want to explore it in the future, because I feel like there's so much story that comes from that I haven't been able to really look at. But yeah, Chinese Western would be something interesting to see, just because mainland China is also really huge,
Yeah.
and it has similar stories of
You can find locations, similar location, kind of with the landscape and stuff
yeah
like that. You can
yeah.
find. And for the near future, do you have any goals that you would like to achieve? It can be like in a year, or maybe if you like to work like more further, maybe 5 years. I don't know.
I mean, I hope to be able to get my second film out soon,
Okay.
in the next 2 years, hopefully. I hope, and nothing. I mean, on a personal front, it's just making sure that I want to be healthy, be hopefully happy with it, or at least people. The world is not as crazy as it is now, you know. But we can hope.
So I would like to ask you, for the one who are interested in Singaporean cinema, is there any recommendation, movies, director that you would give?
Some films that you have to watch: Anthony Chen's Ilo Ilo,
Yeah.
Colin Go's Singapore Dreaming. This is a wonderful film also about the Singapore heartlands. Wu Junfeng's Apprentice, The Apprentice, is a really good film. Recently, there are some good films that just up and coming, really contemporary filmmakers. Nicole Midori Woodford's film Last Shadow at First Light,
Okay.
that premiered in San Sebastian. She shot in Japan and Singapore. Beautiful film. Zhao Zhiwei's debut film is also really wonderful. Tomorrow is a Long Time. It's slow cinema, but I thought it was really well done in the way he executed short, slow cinema, which people are not afraid to do these days. So these are, I would say, some important and contemporary films, filmmakers that you can get acquainted with about Singapore cinema. Yeah.
And now that you've done like your first feature movie, do you want to go back as well sometime and doing like some short movies, or do you want to stay on the
Yeah, I mean, the Cartier short was
apart from
was one. Yeah, I would. I think if there is regardless of length, I think if the opportunity to be able to tell a story, and it's a story that's worth telling, definitely so. Yeah.
Okay. So maybe do you have any final word for the listeners? Anything that you want to say before we end this interview?
Thank you for listening, taking the time to listen. I hope it's been informational. I hope that you, after listening, you would want to, and you'll get the chance to watch Ajoomma wherever you are in the world. And I hope you will keep well, keep watching, whether it's drama or cinema. It's I hope you find inspiration in the things you watch.
Thank you. Thank you for accepting this invitation, actually. I really wanted to do it, and like it's been 1 hour and a half.
I know, I have to run.
I'm sorry for keeping you up. Thank you again for this interview. I will leave all your information, Instagram and so on, in the description box below for the one who want to know more about you. And I look forward watching your future projects.
But thank you so much, Margot, for having me, and wish you all the best.
Thank you.
All your endeavors, and keep happy watching.
Have a nice evening, I guess, in Singapore.
Thank you. Yeah. All right.
All right. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.